And testing. Ms. Lawson, can you hear me?
I can hear you well, Mr. Jackson. Just need to bring your camera up.
Uh,
Okay, I believe we're only waiting on,
uh-oh, what's going
just waiting on State Attorney David Ehrenberg. And
I'm on. All I have is the phone number. So I just called in.
hey, good afternoon, Mr. Ehrenberg. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you. It's good to be with you.
Good to hear your voice again. I see that we have Attorney Adrian Ellis, Attorney Reed, and Attorney Cox. Thank you all for joining us. We are going to get started in 30 seconds. I think everybody's on. Mr. Jackson, is there anyone else that we're waiting on, sir?
Did you want Ms. State Attorney Ehrenberg on video? I believe I sent the link to him.
Okay, if you can get him up, that'd be great.
If you want to send me the link, I can click on the video.
Give me 2 seconds, State Attorney. It should be to your email.
Okay, thank you. Okay. It won't work. It says the address is invalid. How about if I just start at least with on the phone? I can do audio. Unfortunately, I'm just not able to get it.
Hey Dave, I just texted to you.
Yeah, that's what I tried. It didn't work.
Okay.
I'll check my email. Let's see if that works.
Well, while we wait on that to get worked out, we are going to go ahead and get started. I believe we are live, everyone. So welcome and thank you all for joining in tonight. We are hosting The Bridge. It's a community conversation where we're going to bridge the gap between our police, our state attorneys, our legislation, and our residents. most importantly, we all work for our residents. So my goal is to bring the residents and the community together. I'm honored to allow for my legislative aide, Mr. Javaris Jackson, to moderate tonight. And Mr. Jackson, if you can go ahead and get started for us.
Okay. All right. Everyone can hear me clearly?
Yes.
All right. So thank you, Councilman Lawson, and thank you all for joining us this evening. You could be home doing anything. Instead, you have joined us to discuss some very, very important topics. My name is Javarius Jackson. I have the distinct pleasure to serve as your moderator this evening. So why are we here? Since the most recent tragic deaths of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, there has been a national outcry to address race relations, police departments as a whole, and the criminal justice system. We initially began having this dialogue a few months ago. However, this is the first in the public domain, and it is our goal to have more in an effort to further the conversation. Although police brutality is not prevalent in Palm Beach County, it is important that we reflect in terms of what happened and what is happening around the nation. More importantly, tonight we want to discuss what is happening here in Riviera Beach. And I'm quite sure many would argue that we are better than we are 65 years ago than we were 5 years ago. However, opportunities to do a better job is at hand. And that's what tonight's conversation is all about. So rather than be reactive, let's be proactive in our approach to ensure what happened in Ferguson does not happen here in our city. And when I reference being proactive, I mean talking amongst ourselves in terms of race relations, human relations, and the inequalities in the criminal justice system should be ongoing conversations and shouldn't be something that evolved because an incident or accident occurred. So tonight, again, we're going to have those tough conversations on how we can strengthen and restore public trust, how we can foster and enhance relationships, and more importantly, something we all want for our families, and that is safer communities. Tonight, that's what it's all about. Us as a community, us as citizens, continuing to come together and working together to address issues of mutual interest. It's also about us having pride, love, respect, and care, not just between you and I, but for our men and women who serve in uniform to protect and serve our streets 24/7, 365. So thank you, Councilman Lawson, for having the foresight to bring in members from all branches of government, legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government to have an open and honest conversation with the public. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists on this call this evening. And if our panelists in 60 seconds or less could tell us who you are, your role and responsibility, and what you hope to gain from this conversation. And without further ado, I'll start off with City Manager Jonathan Evans.
Good evening, everyone. Jonathan Evans, City Manager. And what I hope to gain out of this conversation is for folks to see the synergy and the opportunities that the City of Riviera Beach as a municipal government and its law enforcement arm, the Riviera Beach Police Department, and how the State Attorney's Office can work in unison to address some of the challenges we have in our community. The State Attorney's Office has always been a good friend of the City of Riviera Beach, and we want to continue to build on that relationship because we want to be the community of choice. And we know that we have some challenges, but I'm confident with the elected leadership and the individuals that are on this call that there is truly a commitment to seeing us turn the tide in our community and be the city that we know we can be. And I'm glad that we're having the conversation, and it's long overdue.
Next, we'll have our top cop in the City of Riviera Beach, Chief Nathan Osgood.
And real quick, before Chief Osgood does his introduction, if we just do some housekeeping. If you're not speaking, please mute your line just because there's so many people on the phone. We want to make sure that everyone can be heard. Thank you, guys.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, I'm Chief Nate Osgood, and I've been your police chief for the past 5 months. My goal is to bridge the community between police and our citizens. We know we have a great community, and it's time that our citizens know that we have a great police department. We actually love them. They're from the community. We also, we have to stamp out crime at every level, everywhere from criminal mischief to the most violent crime. And then we want to make sure we let the community know that we're one, we're part of you. and you're a part of us. So how we're going to do that is just by continuing with our community relations, our community policing, and just see us each and every day. And feel free to have a conversation with any police officer or me, the police chief, or call me directly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. State Attorney Dave Ehrenberg.
Yes, hi. This is Dave. I got bumped off. What was the questions? I missed it.
Sorry, sir.
I lost connection.
Just tell us who you are, your role and responsibility, and what you hope to gain from this conversation.
Yes, hi. This is my name is Dave Ehrenberg. I'm state attorney for Palm Beach County, and with me today I have Adrian Ellis, Alexia Cox, and Cheo Reed. They're people who work very hard for the community to do justice every day, to stand up for victims of crime, and to make sure that the wrongfully accused are protected. Our office investigates some crimes, but our main role is to prosecute criminal activity that violates state statutes, and that includes law enforcement officers who run afoul of the law. Our office investigates all officer-involved shootings, and we were the ones who successfully convicted Newman Raja in the killing of Corey Jones, and that marked the first time in 30 years in Florida that an officer was convicted of an on-duty killing. And that was prosecuted by Alexia and Adrian and Brian Fernandez. Alexia and Adrian are on this call. So I'm honored to be here with you today. I'm sorry because of some technical difficulties that I may have to do part or all of this call just with audio, but I'm happy to answer any questions and to have a good dialogue with you today.
Chief Assistant State Attorney Adrian Ellis.
Hi, I am Adrian Ellis, and I am, my boss is on, and he just introduced me as well. I am Chief Assistant, one of his Chief Assistant State Attorneys here in the office. Been here since 2010, and under Dave, my boss since 2013, and I supervise homicide, grand jury, SVU, county court, and domestic violence unit, and looking forward to a very spirited discussion tonight.
And while we have Ms. Alexia Cox next to you, go ahead and introduce yourself, ma'am.
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, we're sharing this because I was having technical difficulties on mine, so that's the reason we're sharing.
Yes, and I made her put on a mask, so we're
Love the
all
social
good.
distancing, yes.
Yes, well, it meant that much to us to be here, that we figured we would risk it rather than you not having one of us present on the call. So again, good evening. My name is Alexia Cox. I am Deputy Chief Assistant here at the State Attorney's Office. I've been a prosecutor for 13 years of my 15-year career as an attorney, and I assist Ms. Ellis with the county court and domestic violence division supervision. I also oversee 2 of our satellite offices, as well as our newly formed conviction review unit. And it's a pleasure to be here with you all tonight. What I hope to gain from this is just an authentic conversation, and also to answer questions of the community as far as what we do here at the State Attorney's Office, because I think a lot of people don't really understand what our roles and responsibilities are. So that's what I hope that I can contribute to the conversation.
Thank you. And Chief of the Juvenile Division, Mr. Cheo Reed.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cheo Reed. I am the Chief of the Juvenile Division here in Palm Beach County. And that means that I oversee the prosecution of all juvenile cases in the county. And that's the prosecution of a case where a person who commits an offense is under the age of 18. For the past 13 years of my career, actually 11 of the past 13 years, I've been a prosecutor here at the State Attorney's Office in Palm Beach County. What I hope to gain out of this conversation, or hope to see tonight, is a healthy discussion about how we can continue to maintain public safety here in Palm Beach County, while at the same time bridging the gap and creating a more healthy relationship and mending the relationship between law enforcement, prosecution, and the community, because that's hugely important, specifically as it relates to children, as to juveniles. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being on. Next, we have Pulitzer Prize nominated author Reverend Alvin Dowling.
Hey, everybody. My name is Alvin Dowling. For those I have not had the privilege of meeting, I am a native of Palm Beach County. I started my career in Palm Beach County government working for the first African-American Palm Beach County Commissioner, Maud Ford Lee. And so I spent a lot of time in and around Riviera Beach. I'm originally from West Palm Beach, grew up on the corner of Palm Beach Lakes and Tamarind Avenue, but most of everyone I love and my family still resides in Riviera Beach. And so it's important to me to make sure that as an outgrowth of the conversation tonight, we have real, meaningful policy prescriptions that we can implement not next year or in a few years, but that we can implement in the short term to help make the lives of the citizens of Riviera Beach better. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be here and look forward to the discussion.
All right. And members representing our community, Ms. Evelyn Clark, would you like to start?
Yes. Good evening, guests, the panelists, and the viewing audience here in Riviera Beach. My name is Evelyn Clark. I currently sit on the Riviera Beach Charter Review Board, and I'm currently a sitting member of the Planning and Zoning Board. And what I like to gain from our meeting this evening is to keep it localized in terms of some of the challenges that neighbors perhaps have shared with me that are of concern, and most importantly, that we find solutions and we take action upon those community concerns. I also share and echo what my previous panelists have already said, what they would like to do. I just want to, on my behalf, keep it local and make sure that, again, what's important to the local residents, at least I can express on their behalf.
Okay. And Mr. Dennis Clark? You're muted, sir.
I think he said ditto what I said.
Okay, thank you. Next, Erika Davis.
Your microphone, Ms. Davis.
Turn it on.
One more time. It clicked off. One more time, Ms. Davis. Okay. You're good. Go ahead. Oh, it keeps going on and off. Unmute it and then move your mouse from over the microphone. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, hello panel and guests that are watching. My name is Erika Davis. I'm a long-term resident of Riviera Beach. I was born and raised here in West Palm Beach. I am a strong advocate of Riviera Beach. I fight for my city of Riviera Beach. I also ran last year for City Council for District 1. And I'm here tonight because I am very concerned about my city and what's going on in my city. And I hope tonight that we finally get some resolutions and some plans going to start in this city so we can clean up our city and we can have peace in our city. And I'm gonna address some things about what the residents really are looking for. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing your concerns. Ms. Mary Beth Cofer.
Good evening. I'm Mary Beth Cofer. I live here in Riviera Beach. I've been here for 4.5 years. I wanted to participate in this forum because I would like to know, as a member of the community, what I can help to do to make things better. And I would like to be able to say with pride to friends and spouses, coworkers, that I live in Riviera Beach. I'm currently on the Library Advisory Board, and I'm a director with the Friends of Riviera Beach Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Keena Brown.
Hello, my name is Keena Brown. I'm a property manager here in the city of Riviera Beach, also a resident. I hope to gain from this call a way to bridge the gap between local law enforcement, our state attorney's office, and juveniles that are committing crimes within the city, and how we can come up with maybe some youthful offender programs or something to bridge the gap to control the youth that are committing crimes within the city of Riviera Beach.
Thank you. Ms. Latoya Berry?
Hello, my name's Latoya Berry. I'm the owner of TNT Crabs and Seafood and the Diva Cares Foundation. And I'm an advocate big on domestic violence and child abuse here in the city of Riviera Beach. Hello, panel. Thank you for inviting me to this conversation. And I appreciate and I welcome the dialogue and helping our children and helping our young ladies and young men against the fight of domestic violence and finding activities for our youth to go in a different direction.
And I believe last is Kame.
You didn't want to say my last name. It's Kame Holtofterhide. I'm a resident of Riviera Beach, and I'm originally raised in New York, born in Jamaica. And so to me, the culture in Riviera Beach is something special and different. And so my hope is that I can gain a greater understanding of why things are so difficult to be rectified whenever there is an issue. You know, being from New York, everything happens now. This seems to be a greater process. So if I can be a part of the solution, I'm in it.
All right, thank you. All right, so now we're all here today. Although we have some general questions, the structure of this conversation is to be open and fluid and primarily driven by the individuals on this call. So I'm going to go ahead and begin with the first question. And let's begin with an issue that affects us all today, and that's COVID-19. So I'll start with Chief Osgood. In terms of law enforcement, how has COVID-19 impacted your operations? What are some of the trends you're seeing as it relates to crimes in Riviera Beach?
Well, thank you. That's a good question. Well, first of all, COVID-19 has really affected us. It affected us the way we do business. We're not doing business the way we normally would do business. And each and every day we're operating short staffed because somebody's got to stay out due to COVID-related issues. And then each and every call our officers are going on, including our crime scene techs, they're dealing with COVID issues or the unknown of the COVID. And they have to wear masks, glove up when they're dealing with the public. And also they have many hats they have to wear to remind the public that they too should be wearing masks. And then there's a lot of pushback from the public because some people don't want to wear masks. So that's how we're dealing with it on that side. Now, as far as crime going up, yeah, we see a spike in crime and some of the stuff still go up. And a lot of things we're not making a misdemeanor arrest. We're talking our way out of it. We're trying to back off and give them more than enough warnings, verbal warnings to move about, to go on. We take a lot of reports, and still a lot of reports. And then we call it the cabin fever. A lot of domestic related issues are going on right now. People locked in their homes and then things happen, you know. So we gotta, we're still out there each and every day. I can't say business as usual, but we still gotta do business as usual. We gotta be there.
And Ms. Cox or Ms. Ellis, if you all would like to chime in as it relates to, I believe one of you all oversee the domestic violence unit. If you would like to chime in as it relates to what you all have been seeing in your office.
Hi. Well, as far as the domestic violence, I still serve as the chief of that unit, and we are seeing a lot of cases involving people who are in a dating relationship, but also a lot of intra-family violence between, in Palm Beach County, just as probably anywhere else, you have a lot of generations of families who live together. So you also see a lot of that because people are either unemployed and don't have money, so they're, staying in the house. They don't have anywhere to go. You have domestic violence, you have dating violence. So we're seeing it in all different contexts, family or household related abusive crimes. So I definitely can say that there has been an increase. We get, the cases are on a continuous flow from first appearance making its way to our office. But like the chief said, it's still business as usual. We're still, we have court every day going on. We have court 7 days a week because the courts still run on the weekends for weekend first appearances, and we still staff those weekends with prosecutors. We still have victim advocates out at first appearances at the jail out there to help victims and respond to their needs. So nothing has stopped, other than trials, but those will resume when they resume. But as far as us being responsive to victims who are victims of domestic violence or dating violence, family violence crimes, we're still as responsive as we've ever been.
So it hasn't had a impact as it relates to prosecuting cases.
No, we're still. I mean, we're still going forward. Obviously, like I said, has been an increase, but as far as our responsiveness to our victims, no.
And Mr. Reed, can you speak as it relates to our juveniles? We see that they're spending less time in school. So how has them spending less time in school and more time at home affected the amount of trouble that they get into?
It has not been good. When we first started shutting down and we were everyone was quarantining, we saw a real reduction in the number of cases that were coming in. Every day I get a report about the number of juveniles who were taken into custody and brought to the Juvenile Assessment Center and booked in there at the Juvenile Assessment Center. During those first 2 or 3 weeks, the numbers had slowed down. We had much fewer arrests, much fewer crimes occurring. But as time has progressed and, we've as a society have gotten more comfortable with our situation, and kids, juveniles, children have become more restless. We've seen an uptick in some of the auto burglaries, some of the residential burglaries. And as we know, idle hands are the devil's playground. And with schools being closed and with our young people not having a lot of pro-social activities to keep them and their minds occupied, we have seen things slide back to where they were before.
Thank you. And Ms. Brown, I see you itching up. I know this is a topic near and dear to your heart. Would you like to chime in? You're muted, Ms. Brown.
Sorry about that. Being in property management over 3 communities within Riviera Beach, we have a high crime, what you would consider minor crimes as far as car break-ins, juveniles taking bicycles, just removing stuff that's not theirs is obviously a crime. And I would like to see, we used to have, when there was school at some point, there was a truancy years ago when I was in school. That's something that I guess funding may have decreased. So you have, now with COVID, kids are not in school, so they have a lot more downtime. And the kids are now taking advantage of some of the situations that they have. And it seems like they know the laws more than I do as a common citizen, to where they know they can get away with so much of doing the same thing and without anything happening. And I wanted to know if there's a way that we can intervene at some point, maybe outside of juvenile justice, maybe community service, holding parents accountable for some of these actions. But we're in a spot to where the juveniles are really running amok in certain areas. And I'm open to suggestions, and I would like to be a part of the solution as well.
And that was actually part of my question. I wanted to hear from our residents, because right now, I know that our chief Osgood stated that it's business as usual, but what type of crime are we seeing within the community? What are we seeing? Are we seeing a difference or a change within our community? Has gun violence gone down? Has break-ins, has domestic increased? What are we seeing in the city? So if our residents can chime in and jump in. Ms. Brown does property management on a lot of the Congress corridor in the gated communities. So I know that some of the individuals that don't live on that Congress corridor or in the gated community, what are we seeing right
I'll chime in on that first, Councilman. We are seeing a lot of residential correction vehicle burglaries. They're going up and down, and they love the gated communities. They're going up and down, hitting these cars. A lot of time, if we can get our residents to just lock their car doors, they leave their doors open and just open up and just take whatever they can take. It doesn't make a difference which community now. They're walking into the gated communities. Gun violence, we have it every night. I'm going to tell you that's straight. City of Riviera Beach, there's someone popping a gun off at somebody just about on a nightly basis. We got to do something about that. Our community's got to step up. We would love to see that cease and just stop. Whatever beef that's going on in the communities or communities across the way, there's got to be a better way to solve your problem than to pick up a gun and say, let's go and take care of it and indiscriminately shoot up a house or a car. But that's going on just about every night. You can go up and down a lot of the streets in Riviera Beach, and you can't go down the street without seeing at least 4 homes with gunshot bullets riddled. And I'm not talking about 2 or 3, I'm talking about 20, 30 bullets to a house. And so those are some uptakes that we get, and you don't always have a suspect that you can go after. You just go and take a report and move on. And
So Chief, I know you're just getting here and hitting the ground running. As it relates to that gun violence, I know in the past the city has instituted the gun buyback program. In your experience, have you seen that to be something that is successful and effective, or is the people that's really doing the shooting not turning in those guns?
That's a good question, Mr. Jackson. I would tell you the gun buyback program has failed everywhere, and we utilize that quite often where I came from. You get people who turn in guns, not only people who no longer want them. You hardly ever get criminals turning in guns. Matter of fact, a lot of the guns we get off them are stolen guns, and they're not going to come and turn those in. The gun buyback program, in theory, is a good idea, and practicality is done.
I'd like to say something.
Go ahead.
So I actually had 2 bikes stolen. I live in one of the communities that Kame manages, and I'm pretty sure I know the kids that stole it. But the thing that baffles me is that these same kids sit openly and smoke weed. And I've seen the police drive through here, and no one stops to like say anything to them. And as a mother, I'm like, wow, I could never see that openly happen on a block, and the cops don't stop, don't think to like even say, these kids are even not, they don't go to school, right? So I don't understand how, and they're young, they're like 7, 8 years old. And their mom, I've talked to their mom before because the mom did something that was kind of reckless with one that was probably under 5. And she has no care in the world as to what they're doing. So here it is, these kids like roam the community. They're the ones that break into the cars around here. They've stolen 2 bikes from my house. And here it is, it's like nobody knows what to do. These kids are out and about. And I'm like, I can't imagine anywhere. I guess I'm just too stuck to New York where it's just handled. But this is like, these kids just roam the community. They have full control. I'm baffled by that.
I'll get to you, Mr. Dowling, but Manager Evans, would you like to talk about, since we're speaking on youth and juveniles, would you like to talk about the YP program and your vision to expand its role and services here in the city?
Well, certainly the city has a youth empowerment program intended to assist individuals as they look at alternative pathways to be successful in our community, whether it's your traditional educational path or it's going into the trades. And this program has facilitated a lot of young people leaving with 4 or 5 certifications and being gainfully employed right after they complete the program. And I tell young people that go through that program, a good plumber makes more than a good city manager. And in most cases, people are happier to see them than the city manager. So we need to make sure that we realize that not every kid is college bound, that you can make a living and be a productive member of our community by the trades. We are looking to move our YEP program into a new facility. We're looking to acquire a property at 2129 North Congress. That is going to double the footprint of the program. The facility is able to accommodate us looking to move to a STEM curriculum, so we can really emphasize the importance of science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and giving these kids alternatives. When all of us were kids, we can go outside and play till the streetlights turn on. Nowadays, it's profoundly different. The neighborhoods are different. What kids are exposed to today, in one day, they see more than kids used to see 50 years ago in one entire year. So it's important for us to really circle around these young people and give them opportunities and have them see individuals that look like them doing the things that we're doing in our community. But it takes the city of Riviera Beach, it takes the parents, it takes all these other entities providing services, because, you know, to be honest, a kid's not going to be productive in school if he doesn't have breakfast in the morning, or she doesn't have the basic necessities to be able to be productive in the classroom. So we have to really find what the root of the issue is and have the open and honest conversations. But from the city standpoint is, I want the future leader or the future city manager for Riviera Beach, that young man or young ladies in our community today. And it's incumbent upon us to create the opportunities to facilitate them growing. And then if they go away, for them to come back. We lose so much. We export our biggest talent. The young people and the folks in our community leave our community and never come back. And we have to look to bring them back, and we have to create economic opportunity, and we have to be really honest with what are we going to do to move the needle forward. YEP is a great program, but there's so many other things that we need to do that we've missed the mark on, that we have to talk about, and we have to work with our school system. We can't, if you go to I want our schools to be like the schools in Boca and Boynton and the town of Palm Beach. Our kids deserve the same level of education and the same opportunities as every other community in Palm Beach County. And until we start saying we want fair and equitable treatment in the classroom and at the in all houses of government, we're not going to effectuate the change that we want to see. So as it relates to our young people, we have to give them opportunities. One of the things prior to COVID, what I was going to do is I was going to authorize our recreation centers to stay open 24 hours a day on Friday and Saturday, and allow those kids to come and play basketball or do anything in a safe place. And that is a place where they can go and know that somebody's there that cares about them. But we have to get back to those types of programs where if you and I got in trouble, we know that our neighbor, Mrs. Jones or Miss Smith or Mr. Smith, would call our parents if we were acting up. We really got to circle around these kids as opposed to leaving them out to their own devices.
Thank you. Mr. Reed, did you want to say something?
Sure. You know, in addition to what City Manager Evans was talking about in terms of the youth empowerment centers, programs inside the city, you know, very often when we see a child who is heading down the wrong path, our instinct is to contact the police, to get the police involved. But what we've come to understand, and what is actually the reality, is the police don't necessarily have all the tools to deal with these types of situations, and it's not necessarily their job either. One of our very underutilized tools that we have available to us is our SINSFINS program, the Children in Need of Services and Families in Need of Services program. It's a program that is funded by the state of Florida. The funds are funneled down through DJJ. We have Urban League here, Urban League of Palm Beach County, that services that program. And essentially what it does is it allows for anybody who has personal knowledge of a child who's in need of services, that's a truant child, or a child who appears to be ungovernable or has some sort of issue, even substance abuse issue, may have a mentoring need, to make a referral to that program, to hook the child up with services and hook the family up with services that can help keep them out of our delinquency system and keep them out of our dependency system as well, so that the child does not become somebody who's out committing a crime, or the family doesn't get broken up and we see a situation where a child is abused, abandoned, or neglected. So just wanted to throw that piece out there. There are tools, programs that are available, but very often we we don't know about them, or we underutilize them, and we go to law enforcement to address the issues when there are other ways that we can and should often seek to have those issues addressed.
Mr. Dowling, I want to get Mr. Dowling there really quickly. He had his hand up. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I had a couple of thoughts. First of which is, when you look at the last, or rather the most recent statistics in terms of crime for the city of Riviera Beach, the majority of the crime seems to be economic based. And so you're looking at a large number of larcenies, followed by aggravated assault, burglary, motor vehicle thefts. And so my question is, what can we do when we see that it is an issue that is based on resources? And oftentimes these are not just crimes of opportunity, but crimes of desperation. What are we doing to keep those kids that we know that they're out there robbing, either because they don't have resources, they don't have food at home? What are we doing to sort of keep them out of the system? I'd be curious as to, particularly with the state attorney's office, what is sort of the plan to keep these kids out of the system? Because as of right now, 1,500 kids in Palm Beach County are locked up on an average basis a year in the Juvenile Assessment Center. About 41% of the kids that are locked up in total go to the Juvenile Assessment Center. And so what can we do from a law enforcement perspective to keep some of these kids out of there? Because we know that once they get in that system, it's hard to get out. And then when you look at that 1,500, another 400 of them are remanded back to the system because the charges they rack up while they're in JAC. So how do we prevent that to begin with?
That's a loaded question.
Barry, and if I could just chime in before that was handed over. I'm completely, and I believe Ms. Kame mentioned earlier, that we have an issue within our community. It does start with economics, but it also starts with parenting within the homes. We have to make sure that we are, as a village, working together, taking care of our kids and helping our neighbors and supporting one another, because we have to be the ones that we're trying to actually help. We have to be the ones that we're looking for. So our neighbors need to be taking care of our neighbors. We need to get back to this village mentality. I think the biggest thing that we're trying to stop is that school to prison pipeline. And our only way to do that is to focus on a community, is to start with the community, providing the resources necessary. And that's part of the programming that we have. So partnering with possibly our state attorney's office, our YEP program, Chief is, I'm sure, going to speak about our POW program that's going to be launching soon. And there's so many opportunities that we have, but we need to get this exposed to our residents, get this out to our residents, and let them know these are the things that are available to our residents so that we can actually initiate them. The purpose of this call is to actually formulate and to create policy and programming so that we can, as a team, work together to eliminate some of the issues that we're having with the community, especially within crime within our youth. So, Mr. Jackson, I believe that question that Mr. Dowling had was actually directed at our state attorney.
I'll go ahead and jump on this one. Since we're talking about youth, there are a couple things. Yes, we see too many of our children coming into the juvenile justice system. One of the ways that we try to, from a law enforcement perspective, and that includes prosecution as well, try to keep them out of the system, is by utilizing our juvenile first offender program, which is under the statute called the civil citation program, for children who come in with a first-time misdemeanor offense, to divert their cases so that they technically do not ever hit the juvenile justice system. It's a referral that's made to a program that's operated by law enforcement that allows children who, need services, maybe need counseling, maybe need mentoring, to have that opportunity to do that before they formally hit the system. And beyond that, if a child picks up additional offenses and felony level offenses, we have other diversionary programs that we send them to before actually ever filing a case inside the court system. So that's one of the things that we do. But the old adage that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure is never more applicable than it is when we're talking about juveniles and talking about children. And that's why, things like the Youth Empowerment Center, funding needs to be behind that. We need to be pushing, expanding that program. One of the things that we look at is when children are committing crimes pre-COVID, right? So, when the schools are open and they are in school between the hours of 8 a.m. and 3 p.m., we see, a lower crime rate at those hours. But when school is closed, when they're getting out after school, we're talking about now between 5 and 11 p.m. at night, our crime rates go up. So what does that indicate to us? That they need to be occupied. They need to have things that pro-social activities in which they're engaged to keep them busy. So things like the Youth Empowerment Center and other programs. One of the things we also know about our juveniles, about our children, is that especially the population of people, us in Riviera Beach, is that, some of our kids need mentors. Not some, but a lot of them need mentors. They need people who look like them, who sound like them, who have had some of their very own life experiences, to model what a good citizen looks like, to model what responsible behavior is for them. So beefing up our, mentoring in our city so that our children have these places to go to and have these people to look to help steer them away from the system. So those are just a couple of things that, we can do more of as a city and as a county to help steer our children away from getting in trouble.
Ms. Clark, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I agree with everything that our panelists had said. However, from a resident standpoint, residents who are the victims of these crimes by the youth are very frustrated because it's happening to us. And I'm an advocate of prevention. What can we do now, not post, but now? We talked a lot about programs. What programs are actually working? And let's put more funding behind it. Let's put the statistics behind it and measure what's working. I think the residents want to see good programs that are for the children, are for the families, and that they're working. Let's find the money. Let's measure the success of it. We want to end the school to pipeline scenario. I think residents are just frustrated. What's working? And we just need to replicate that. We got programs that the city manager talked about putting in place. We need to get that out to the family so that they know there are resources. If these things are happening, it's because the youth and the parents and even the community, us residents, we don't even know that it's out there anywhere, where to go, who to talk to, what documentation, testimonials. We don't have anything. And I'm tying that back to the one resident that talked about the bicycle being stolen. We're feeling the impact of being the victimization, if you will. Thank you.
Really quickly, if I could have Port Commissioner Joseph Anderson introduce himself. I see that you joined us, sir.
Yes, Joe Anderson, Port of Palm Beach. I apologize for my tardiness, but I'm here to add anything that I can add, because being a lifelong resident, being born and raised and grew up through the recreational program, and speaking to Mrs. Clark's point, we had a very robust Parks and Recs department, which, as you says, the cliche is and the paraphrase of the idle hands is the devil's worship. So you see a lot of these kids, and I definitely agree with Mrs. Clark. What can we do to get back to where we was back then? So that's just my little input, but glad to be here and thank you for having
Thank
this
you.
host.
And if I can go to Ms. Keena Brown and then to Mr. Jonathan Evans.
Mr. Lawson mentioned parenting and Mr. Evans as well, as far as Miss Smith talking to the little kids or correcting the children. But in most cases, it's not like that. If I did something as a child, I didn't want to go home because it was already there before I made it home. Now you find more of the parents are defending tooth and nail what the kids are doing. I mean, as a property manager, I've approached situations to where I've saw a child do something, spoke to the parent about the situation, and it's like, oh, you're harassing my kids, or you're doing this, or you're doing that, and it's quickly flipped. So I sympathize with the police department in a sense to where you're dealing with I don't want to say a group, an interesting group or generation to where the parents are condoning some of the foolishness that the kids are doing. The parents are allowing the children to bring stolen goods into their homes. So I understand the residents that are being victimized, but we're at a critical point to where little Johnny's taking or stealing something, but the parents know they're taking or stealing something. They know they're hiding the guns in the house. They know exactly what's happening. So to say that we have a lot of youth in the system, I have two sons, a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old. As a parent, I know I have to keep them busy. School, extracurricular activities, accountability to where you're going, but that's not in every household. And what we're missing is that the parent control in the household. That's why when I mentioned earlier, is there something to where, hey, if Johnny is getting in trouble and we've taken him to his mom one time, he did the same thing again, and mom is brushing it off, to where we make her accountable to where when Johnny has to do his community service hours, mom needs to go along with him, or some type of parenting along with it. Because what I'm seeing is it may be a single parent household, but parents are not taking accountability for some of the things the kids are doing. A lot of you may have the Ring camera system. You watch it at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you see the kids running through communities, and it's like, well, no one knows they're missing from the house. So it goes back to the structure of the household, and we can set up as many programs as we want, but if the parent is not saying Johnny needs to be there, or someone enforcing in some type of way, the kids that want to be in the kids that are committing the crimes are not the kids that go to those programs. And that's all I have to add.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. And Mr. Evans?
And I think Ms. Brown hit the nail on the head with regards to some of the challenges we have. I can tell you I've gone out on a call with Chief Osgood where I saw a young man that couldn't be any older than 17 years old that had narcotics, multiple firearms, and when he was being detained by law enforcement, his mother came over there and was telling him not to say anything, be quiet, why are you harassing my son? He's already got an attorney. He said he already beat one charge or what have you. So to Ms. Brown's point, you have a situation where we have, like Chief Osgood said, we have shots that are fired pretty routinely in our community. You can't tell me that somebody doesn't see something and somebody doesn't know something. We've had situations where there have been 15 to 30 rounds in a neighborhood and nobody calls the cops, and we respond because ShotSpotter is what communicates to us. That can't be okay in anybody's neighborhood. And we have to say that if we really want change, it's going to require us to establish a relationship with law enforcement that knows that, hey, we're here to protect and serve the community. And actually, Chief Osgood and his team changed the mantra to they want to serve the community first and then protect it. And so we're trying to do everything in our power. We're looking to create a PAL program. We've got excellent programs in place. We have done things to circle around our youth like no other community has, but we have to, as a community, say that this is not going to be acceptable in our neighborhood. And if there is situations where there is those problem properties or nuisance, that we have folks that are selling drugs or doing illegal activities, that we go through a nuisance abatement process, and we expect that people are going to govern themselves accordingly. In our community, and I just got the information the other day, 85% of the rental properties that are owned in the city of Riviera Beach are not by Riviera Beach owned residents. That means that this is an investment to them. They don't have the sweat equity that each and every one of us have that live in this community and believe in this community. So if we have absent landlords, what we need to say to these landlords is there's an expectation. If we get people that come in and terrorize our neighborhoods and our communities, and our senior citizens can't walk at night, that we will take every legal action to coin this property as a nuisance and take legal action to take it, because it is not okay. It's never been okay. And I think we have to really address the problem versus looking to the symptoms. The problem is we have to get more involved in our community. Our community has to work with law enforcement and understand that we have to take back our community, but it requires us to do it because nobody else is coming in and do it for us.
And to that point, Mr. Evans, Mr. Jackson, I'm sorry, but that just sounds like we need to look for funding to create more home ownership programs from the county, from the city, and just to change the economics that Mr. Dowling spoke on earlier. Because that rental issue that we have within the community, it's showing when we have a majority of our a lack of home ownership in our community. But I'm looking at, there's so many issues and topics that we're addressing, and we're jumping from different areas and different arenas because there's so many topics that we have to cover within the community. It's not just crime within our youth. It's not just the economics issue. There's so many different concerns that we have and that we won't be able to get through, within this one call. And our goal to move forward is to spend this next 3 to 6 months having these tough, in-depth conversations, discussing each concern that we can create policy with and continue to move forward with. So I'm adamant about hearing with Ms. Brown and Mr. Evans talking about the stop snitching rule that we all grew up on. But this deep-rooted trauma that is happening and that's happened in our community, where our residents don't trust our officers. They don't trust them to keep them safe. They truly don't believe that they're going to do their job when they actually, stop snitching and tell them the people that's actually committing these crimes that the officers are going to take care of them, and then that also the state attorney's office is going to take care of them. Because once these individuals are arrested, what protection is being given to the people and the residents that are snitching? And it's not just about the fact that we grew up, don't talk to officers. We also grew up with the fact that there was a deep-rooted trauma in regards to police, in regards to attorneys, and that's just within our community. So how do we, and that's me playing devil's advocate, because I've seen both sides and lived on both sides. I've been slammed to the floor by an officer at the age of 20 while I was in college as a grown man, thinking that I'm an adult and knowing my rights and being treated just like some punk on the street. So how do we address these concerns, and how do we address the true trauma that our community has experienced? That's the conversation that we really need to have to get deep rooted, because we can throw out policy, we can throw out programming, we can keep talking about YEP, but the issue we have is that it's deeper than that. And if our residents don't see that we are the ones we're waiting on, then they won't understand that we're trying to create things that's going to effectually change this community. So the individuals on this call are all adamant. I've seen each one of you speak out about the concerns in this community, but we're missing so many people that are just standing by, not allowing for change to happen, and just watching their kids smoke weed on the street, as Ms. Kame said, or watching the individuals that are committing the crimes and turning their back when we come to them to ask them for support and help. So we need to come up with true policy and program, and also hold our neighbors accountable. And I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson, that was just on my mind. I apologize.
Thank you, sir. And Chief, if you want to chime in on that, and also if anyone, I believe, from the state attorney's office, if you all want to talk about the community outreach efforts that the office do, that'd be great.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Jackson. We talked about a lot of programs tonight. We have so many programs in the city of Riviera Beach. The city has a lot of funding resources into our program, and it's directly for our youth. We have National Night Out coming up. We have Trunk or Treat. We have Shop with a Cop. We have a great park and rec department in our city, and we drive all of our kids to this. We want them to be part of it. We're even starting a PAL program where we're gonna get kids even more involved on doing community things. Now, it's almost like, you know, the cliche, taking a horse to water, but getting the horse to drink. You know, it's not that easy. And we go out and we mentor with our kids. A few weeks ago, and we have a lot of people in the community who are helping bridging the community with law enforcement and community. A lot of people. Let me start with Jacoby Brissett, Abe Elam. A few weeks ago, they purchased over 300 bicycles for the community and gave them out and did a bicycle ride along with the police officers. And I was one of them who rode along, and we got out and rode along with the community. And some of the guys who we rode along with are guys who we know commit crimes every day. And we shake hands with them, we talk to them and talk about help getting their life on the right track. Because if you're not committing a crime, I will not refer to you as a criminal. And we pulled them aside in private conversations. I had private conversation with Mr. Evans about if this kid wants to turn his life around, we would find a way to pay scholarship money for that kid and get him in college. And I have had private conversations with some of the kids, and when I say kids, I'm talking about men who are 20 years old, or kids who are 20 years old, 21, 22 years old. And they're looking, and I get phone calls from them. I give them my phone number, and they'll say, hey, Chief, talk to me. You serious about getting me off the street and getting me separated? Because I know these young men want to separate from that life, but, you know, they're being pulled by that community. They can only see me every now and then, but they see that community 24/7. They want to separate. So we know there's a lot of people out there who want to do well. And Mr. Evans said this also. And by the way, sir, that kid was 15 years old with the guns and drugs. And I will not give up on him. I know who he is. He knows me. And I guarantee you, at the right moment, I will rescue him from that environment after I help teach him and get him away from his social environment, meaning his mother and some of the community that he idolized. It's not an easy task. It's not a one-stop shop. You're not going to say, let's program our way out of it. All right? We just can't program your way out of this. We're not going to rest your way out of it. So sometimes people have to mature. And I will say this last thing, and I'll close it. Our police officers are really out there trying to connect with the community. They're doing another bicycle ride tomorrow night. You're welcome to join us. We'll ride along the community. We want everybody to participate. So please join us.
Remember, if you're not speaking, please mute your mics, guys. We have a lot of guests on. Thank you.
So from the state, from the state attorney's office perspective, I just wanted to address something really quickly. I think City Manager Evans hit the nail on the head in accountability. And yes, we can talk about bridging these gaps between law enforcement, prosecution, and the people in the community. But it's not till we as people and as residents decide that we're going to demand that our communities operate at a certain level, and that the people in our communities behave a certain way, and that our communities look a certain way, that we're going to get to a place where our communities are the way we want them to be. And I say that to say, it's very often that we get cases in the office, and including from Riviera Beach, when someone has called the police or ShotSpotter has gone off. And it's not just dealing with young people. This is an adult case, adult crime issue as well, where we will reach out to the victim, or we will reach out to witnesses who may have called the police initially, or people who may have been, noted as being on scene, and we don't get cooperation. And I know Miss Cox and Miss Alex can attest to that as well, dealing with on the domestic violence side, and the county court side. We can only work with what is brought to us, and very often, in order for us to effectuate change in a person's life, especially when we're talking about young people, we have to have a strong case to move forward on in order to insert the means by which we can change someone's life, we have to have a good case. And so if something happens, if there's a crime that occurs and, it's witnessed by 5 or 6 people in the street, but as we are building our case and we are reaching out to people, we get no cooperation, then that's a loss, that's a missed opportunity. But that's also a communication to the person who has committed this offense, this person who may need somebody to help steer their life, that they can get away with whatever it is that they did, and there's no consequence to it, and there's no system involvement. That's one thing I wanted to bring into the conversation as well. In terms of community engagement, our office earlier this year, last year, and the year before that, we worked with the Palm Beach County School District to actually go into every school that would have us, to come in and talk to our young people during school assembly hours, during regular school hours, because that's when they are a captive audience, about crimes that we're seeing occur inside of our county, and how they can be the agents of change to see themselves not come into the system. If they are in the system, how they can come out of the system, and help those people around them. So we try to engage with our young people by going to where they're at, and having them sit down in assemblies. And it's not just us talking to them. We engage them in dialogue and ask questions, and answer questions. And one of the other things that we do I think it's been very effective, is the Kids and Cops dialogue that it actually occurs. It's been occurring in West Palm Beach, the city of West Palm Beach. They have that with their youth program through their city police, where they actually bring kids in and they will sit down in the room with police officers, ask questions of them, build relationships with them. Our office has been involved with that, and for several years, and it's an effective tool by which some of our kids, for the first time in their lives, will have a positive interaction with a law enforcement officer. Or those who never interacted with a law enforcement officer can meet someone with that uniform on and not be scared of that person, and can see a positive role model in that person. So that's something that we might want to look at as well.
If I could add to that, Cheo, thank you. This is Dave Ehrenberg. In our core as a state attorney's office, we are there to prosecute crimes that occur. We're not a prevention agency. We're a criminal agency that holds people accountable and tries to do justice. But what we've done by having great people like Cheo and Alexia and Adrian is that we have expanded the role of the state attorney's office to participate in the front end, the prevention, speaking to groups. We give scholarships to some students who want to study criminal justice. We do a victims' rights walk. We have been out in the community a lot more than the narrow mission of your typical state attorney's office, because it's really important for people to see us, to participate in forums like this. And so I just want to let you know that's not necessarily normal for a lot of state attorney's office, district attorney's office, who are focused entirely on, convicting and prosecuting cases. Our job is seen as much broader, and that's the way I wanted it.
Ms. Perry, I see you trying to jump in. Are you trying to say something?
Yes, I'm listening, and I hear the conversation that everyone's saying, but I feel like that no one's addressing the issue, except for Councilman Lawson said it earlier, and our city attorney said it, our city manager said it. But guys, you got to realize that in order to get to the children, you need to go to the parents. We have children who are being parented by parents that don't know parenting. And they have this cycle of being in and out of prison that goes 3-4 generations back. So they do their norm. No, they don't trust the police. No, they don't trust law enforcement. No, they don't trust lawyers. They don't trust anyone. And they know a way of life, which is criminal activity. Now, once you break the mold in the parent, the grandparent, on that side, you'll be able to save the children and save the parents to create a better community here in Riviera Beach. And if you see your neighbor doing something wrong, I just feel like I'm a stickler. If I know I have neighbors that don't live a lifestyle like myself, I reach out to them. I try to become a part of their dynamic to show them a different way of life personally. Because it only takes one opportunity to create that dynamic that will change the dynamic for their household as well as yours. And it's honor among thieves. We all know that. So once you create that dynamic, they'll show you a level of respect, even in their wrongness. So if you create that within your community, our community can change house by house, block by block, city by city. And then we can put the state attorney out of business. That's all I have to say.
Let's go to Ms. Davis and then to Ms. Clark.
Am I up now?
Go ahead, Ms. Davis.
Or someone else? Go ahead.
I agree 100% with Ms. Brown and Ms. Latoya and the city manager. It starts with the parents. We can dialogue all day long about the programs and what this and that and the other. This city is tough. I've been out here 15 years, and it's in every city the same generational curse. And it always starts with the parents. The parents have babies and they don't know how to be parents. And then they give the children to the streets. And this is where the problem starts. Now, our residents out here, they are very, very frustrated because of all the things that are going on. We've had for 2 months fireworks out here, along with gun violence and just disrespect throughout the neighborhood. And we have to change that. I'm sorry, but the officers, Chief Osgood, you guys are going to have to come up with a plan, because the parents are not cooperating with you about their children. So you're going to have to put your foot down out here. And you're going to have to come up with a plan, because I understand community policing. That's fine and well, but it's not working. And it hasn't been working. The dynamic is not changing. So what you need to do is you need to locate the hot spots where all of this activity is happening. And we need surveillance. You have cameras. If you have to put money into the budget to set up cameras and monitor those cameras and do more police surveillance, so we can detect where all of this mess is going on, fine and well. We do have residents. The senior citizens are frustrated. They want a police substation over at Lindsay Davis, somewhere in the middle between S Avenue and 28th Street, because they're very, very, very upset. They told me to tell you they want a substation. They're tired of coming out of their houses, seeing all of these guys hanging outside selling drugs. You guys are going to have to get tough. I don't care what no one says. All this other stuff is not working. You're going to have to come up with a plan. And you can come up with the plan. You have cameras, and you're going to have to do more surveillance and more detective work in order to get your people and resolve this problem. And also, yes, we do need to clean it up with the ordinances and stuff, with the stores, with the liquor stores. We want those things out of our neighborhood, period. We want to be like Mayberry.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Davis. And I just want to switch the subject really quickly, because Ms. Perry alluded to the fact of putting the state attorney's office out of business. So when you all hear the term defund police or reimagine our police officers, I'm gonna start with you, Chief. What comes to mind when you hear that term, defund the police or reallocating resources to other areas of local government?
What comes to mind is that it's not practical. You cannot defund the police. If you defund the police, you're going to have a real big problem in every community across America. Now, if you say do different funding for the allocation, reallocating funds, federal funding, I have no problem with that. If you want to talk about putting money into mental health, that's fine too. But when you're talking about defunding police, we're having a hard enough time keeping up with what we have to get the job done out there in the community. Mr. Davis makes some interesting points here. I mean, talking about the community out there. We're stretched thin trying to put out every element of complaints and crime, from fireworks to gunshots. Literally, we have gunshots every single night. I know Mr. Evans alluded to 30 rounds. We get a few weeks ago, we had 45 rounds shot up the house, 45 rounds. And then that group went to another city and fired over 100 rounds. And so our police are tied up on more violent. And I'm not going to say stealing a bicycle, smoking weed is not, that's not important. It's very important. We have violent crime. We have to take care of each and every. So like going to the hospital, you have to a car crash, you have to triage. You know what's important now, and you have to attack the issues as we see. So defunding the police is an emotional way of thinking. Something happened 7 states away, and let's blame this city for it and take it away from them. I'm proud of the work that the men and women in the city of Riviera Beach are doing and have done. I'm proud of the work that a lot of police officers and departments throughout South Florida are doing and done. Now, is there work to do? Of course. There's a lot of work to do. I hear the anger, the frustration. I feel it. I too am angry, but I have to have controlled anger. Where, what are we going to do about it? And I welcome anybody to come to my office. Let's sit down and let's share my plan and let's talk about it so we can roll it out, or let's share your plan, your visions on what you think that should be done. I welcome anybody to come and sit down and talk to me, because I don't have all the best ideas. There's a lot of people out there with better ideas than I do. If you got something that's going to make the wheel better when it rolls, I want to hear about it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Evans, and we'll go to Ms. Clark.
I do want to comment on Ms. Davis's remarks. And Ms. Davis, you must have been reading my emails. Chief Osgood, can you please provide Ms. Davis what we plan on doing and presenting to the City Council once we do relocate YEP to the other facility that we're looking to acquire?
Yes, sir. I kind of wanted that to be a surprise, but it was like she was. If you're referring to the Lindsay Davis Center, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking to put a substation right there in the community, and we've already have done some roll calls in that community. If you haven't seen it so far, I want to flood that community with more police officers, so that people can get the idea of, hey, we're here. We're going to move a little bit further west to be right there in the hub of the community. Not to necessarily say we're taking over your community, but we want to be more part of the community. People may sit and think, well, you know what? I know Officer Jones, I know Officer Carter, and we have that relationship with him. Now, not everybody's going to want to be a police officer, and I think someone said it earlier, you're not going to gear everybody to the life of cops, because you can't gear most people away from the life of crime. And that's our goal, and that's our mission. I think we're going to get there. So we're going to roll that out. We're looking to do a lot of things further west, right up and down the S Avenue corridor, a little east of there, a little west of there.
And to Chief Osgood's point, we've also looked at building out some cubicles at the Brooks Center as well, to look to deploy additional law enforcement assets in the community. So we're coming one way or another. We're going to be in the neighborhoods.
Ms. Clark, I saw you raise your hand.
Okay. I want to direct this more to Chief Osgood. I don't think it's a issue of defunding the police. I think the term is reimagining the funding so that the police department can focus on more serious issues and bring in other entities that will focus on mental health type of scenarios, or those type of things where the police department is doing something more critical to keep our residents in our city safe. You asked a long time ago, I've been to several of these forums, and we've had very, very poor turnout. If we got 15 people, we were fortunate out of a city of over 30,000 people. And this type of forum, I've been to several of them. Again, we get maybe 15 to 20 people. And there is the motto, see something, say something. Now, here's the elephant in the room. Police brutality on citizens can be subjective, from the perspective of the victim and the police authority involved. Many law-abiding citizens are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder resulting from the viral videos showing police brutality by bad authorities. These occurrences are under qualified immunity, limiting justice for the innocent victims, making law-abiding citizens apprehensive about working together with their local law enforcement towards community policing. Riviera Beach may not have this type of publicity. However, people are traumatized. And my question is, what can we accomplish together locally to address the healing and do this on a local scale so that when we have these forums, it's not the same 15 or 20 people coming out?
Ms. Clark, that's an excellent question. And I wish I had a crystal ball to be able to answer that and see the future to tell you how to get more out. And you were at one of the forums that I said, I wish that we could fill the room with more than 15 to 20. Listen, I cannot say mental illness, when we start from the beginning, is not an issue or problem in every community in the USA. When we get there on the scene, we have to deal with a person who may have committed a crime. Doesn't mean that you would send a person who's only trained in mental illness with no tools on his or her belt to deal with a mentally ill person who have beaten up his mother or shot at someone. That doesn't make a lot of sense, and people believe that is the case. Now, I'm not saying you, but I've heard people say that. Police officers, we're trained in many different hats to deal with mental illness, and those who take those tools, and I'm not talking about the ones around the belt, I'm talking about the ones that you sit in the classroom, you gain in your head to how to deal with mental illness, a person with mental illness or PTSD. They utilize the de-escalation tactics appropriately. Unfortunately, we have seen many times across the nation that not every police officer deal with it the right way. I wish they could. And I come back and I address it in my lineups, my roll call, my officers. I go to early morning, late afternoon lineups. I engage conversation with all of the police officers. And I let them know what I will stand for, what I will not stand for. So I do expect for any police officers under my watch to conduct themselves in that manner. And they know if they did, there would be repercussions. We will follow the guideline. Now there's something that we have, Police Officer Bill of Rights, and then it rolls into the officer due process. I wish I could just terminate on the spot. Unfortunately, I can't. That's a sure way to make sure a person who did some type of misconduct against the law, violated whatever person's rights, that's a sure way for that person to never leave the job. They can come back. And that's something that's throughout the nation. We have to let due process take its course, take its place. We cannot move too fast. I know a lot of people believe this officer did this, but why is he or her still on the job? It's our hands are tied. It's a never-ending conversation I have with the city manager about certain things that is going on and what we can and cannot do. And I've had many conversations with the state attorney's office about certain things with police officers. So it's not that we condone misconduct. It's just that and I'm not just speaking for my city, I'm talking about across the board, you have to deal with it appropriately before you make a move of termination, or if that's what you're talking about. No police agency, no police chief wants a bad cop on his force. I guarantee you that.
Chief, I hope I'm not too old to shop with a cop.
Ms. Cofer, I believe you had your hand up.
This is a question, twofold question. Part of it's for Mr. Evans, and that is, given the fact that COVID is probably here to stay for a while, what facilities and what activities can be reopened on a modified, socially distanced basis to provide some outlet for the youth?
Well, we're looking at following a couple of models from successful models. I'll add that disclaimer, from entities that have opened up whether it's government entities or school districts, to allow for small groups to congregate. We do believe that there's a lot of value to being able to bring people in for social type of settings, to be able to move to some form of normality. Our concern is just that with the numbers being the way they are here in Palm Beach County and the state of Florida, we've erred on the side of caution, but staff is looking at building out a more robust plan and looking at what the school district's doing as well. Is there any ways to utilize digital means or hybrid situations, or, you know, places where you can meet in a park outside and do some type of activities or just social discussions on some items. So we're looking at any and every way to try to move to some form of normality while being conscientious of, you know, the workforce and the individuals we do have that would be providing those services. But trust me, it was a tough decision to shut down recreational amenities and library services. And it is also equally tough to hear from some of the people in the community that do want to see some of those operations restored. We're just looking at building out the digital platform and the means to do it safely and responsibly.
And my second part of this question then goes to the chief. I understand that Riviera Beach has a high percentage of unsolved crimes. And I think it stems back to the you don't snitch idea. What can we do as neighbors and perhaps potential witnesses to those things to encourage other people to give it up?
We probably have to increase our awards. If you are Crime Stoppers awards, you're gonna probably have to get people to come out and say it is good to be able to move people out of the community. As long as they live in the community, it's hard to get them to talk. And a lot of it, and I say this and this is being honest, a lot of them just don't talk, because if I talk, quote unquote, if I talk, somebody's gonna come back and say what I did and what he did. And then we know many times, even when you get a statement from them, they turn around and recant it right on trial. That has happened. And so we've had witnesses killed. And I'm not saying we've had them killed, but witnesses out here have been killed. But to say this, there's anonymous hotlines that they can call and give up information. We're not getting that. And we encourage it to happen. The community have built a trust amongst each other that they don't want to be the ones on this side of the fence to side with the police. And we got to break that. We got to break that cycle of they don't want to side with the police. It's not that they don't know. Now, something can happen in many states away. A police officer against a black male, we don't know if he was really a criminal or not. And next thing you know, the whole country is marching and protesting with their nice shirts on. Black Lives Matter. I get it. I understand. But we're not doing the exact same thing when crime is happening in your own community and we're having killings. Now, about the unsolved crime, we have information. We have a lot. Our investigators are really good. We have enough information to look at these crimes and to sit down with the state attorney's office and to make some decisions on what should happen. We meet the state attorney's office. A lot of our detectives meet daily to sit here and try to figure out how to iron out the cases and make it better presented so it can be presented. If you're talking about the homicides, we have a lot of unsolved homicides, and that's heartbreaking to me. And it is something that we got to do something about that. And trust me, I have weekly meetings with our homicide detectives to discuss this. How are we going to get these homicide cases cleared? It doesn't sit easy with me, not at all. I kind of lose sleep on some of these cases, and to be honest. But we have to be able to get better witnesses, get our witnesses to speak up and not be afraid to see what they saw. So then we have to work on tightening up our circumstantial evidence, what we collect and put the dots to make sure we can take it to the state attorney's office so they can prosecute the case properly.
And Chief, to that point, Chief, are we providing support, protection for these witnesses? I guess this is more so for our state attorneys. What type of protection are we providing for the individuals that want to cooperate, but are afraid or fearful for their lives to cooperate in these certain cases, that want to trust our law enforcement, that want to trust our attorneys, but are scared because they feel like they're going to be retaliated against? What support is provided to them? That's more so for our state attorney's office.
Hi, Mr. Lawson. This is Adrienne. And we can, the one tool that we do have available to us is the ability to relocate witnesses. And we can do that. And I can tell you, I've done that before. And we offer, depending on depending on the people involved in the homicide, a lot of times, when we offer that service to keep the witnesses on board and protect them, they don't want to relocate because they live and their roots are here, and so that's a hard pill for them to swallow. But I have to I want to go back to a point that was made a little bit ago where someone indicated, someone said, there's loyalty amongst thieves. I think the way to flip this around is, and this goes to that point that we're talking about right now, is, there has to be some loyalty amongst the residents also in the community. And what I mean by that is, I know no one wants to, put their lives or their family's lives in jeopardy, but if we're not, as a community, if we're not going to cooperate when chiefs, men and women are canvassing the area, and you have witnesses saying, well, I didn't see anything, I didn't see anything, I didn't see anything, that's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere. And it's unfortunate because we do know that people and the streets talk. The streets talk and street talk is different than courtroom talk. And so we have to be able to prove that case. So I think there needs to, there has to be at some point a meeting of the minds with the residents of Riviera Beach that, just like there's loyalty amongst thieves, there has to be loyalty amongst us. I mean, if we want to make a dent in this issue, then, when the chief is out here, when shot spotter goes off, and the detectives come out and they interview us, I'm going to say something. I saw something, I'm going to say something. If they don't do that, then it's extremely unfortunate for that family who has lost a loved one, and for the community that it's the same person that you just saw shoot somebody 2 weeks ago, but nobody is going to say anything. So you kind of have multiple issues going on because they want to say something, but they don't want to be labeled a snitch. They're in fear for their life or their family's lives. And then when we offer to relocate them, to protect them, they don't want to leave, their home. They don't want to leave their loved ones. And they don't want to, these are people that have been in their community for 40, 50 years. And, their thought process is, well, why should I have to leave? I'm not going to cooperate and then have to, uproot my family and leave. So I think it's kind of, something has to give, because we can keep having the conversations, and trust me, I love having the conversations. But I think that the community has to, they have to start taking advantage of some of the programs that we have, like the Witness Protection Program, and trying to put a dent in this. Because if you don't, like I said, a person you saw shoot, you know that this person shot someone 2 weeks ago. You just saw him shoot someone again. But if you're not going to say anything, there's nothing we can do. And that's kind of it's kind of like being in a box with no window and no door. You know that there's something out there, but you can't get to it. And that's the position that we find ourselves in as prosecutors. I mean, Cheo alluded to it earlier. You know, we have witnesses all the time that will tell us, you know, and trust me, they will relocate themselves to the point where we can't even find them, so that they don't have to cooperate. So it really is, to say a catch-22 is not even really putting the real description on what we deal with as prosecutors, and as the chief said, the angst and just the concern, and you know, our heart bleeds when we have homicides that are 6 years old, 4 years old, and we know who did it, because like I said, the streets talk. We make arrangements to bring people in here on a Saturday. We make arrangements to bring people into our office on a Saturday because they don't want to be seen coming to the state attorney's office during the weekday. So we make those arrangements, and then they don't show up. So there's got to be something where, you know, like there's loyalty amongst thieves, there's got to be loyalty amongst the community. And I wish I had the answer for, well, how do you get, who's going to be the first one to stand up and say something? You know, I don't know. I don't know. I just know that it's something that has to be, that's where we have to start.
And to that point, Ms. Ellis, that's going to be, I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson, but just to that point, that's what this continued conversation, that's why we're going to continue these conversations as often as possible. We have to work with our state attorney's office, our police force has to talk on a regular basis, because the cases that they're bringing to the state attorney's office, they want to make sure that they're being prosecuted. And you want to make sure that those cases that are coming to the table are fulfilled with all the information you need to prosecute. So understanding what has been the shortcomings before and what we can do moving forward. But Mr. Jackson, go ahead. You were about to jump in.
No, I was just going to say we have about 15, 20 minutes left. I want to get Mr. Dowling and Ms. Brown in, and I wanted to move to our final topic tonight, which is accountability. Go ahead, Mr. Dowling.
Certainly. I think that in order for us to have real movement in this area, we really have to have honest brokers. You know, I had two siblings who were murdered on the streets of Palm Beach County. One on the corner of 4th and Tamarind, and the other at a park on 47th and Pinewood. And I recall going to the then chief of police of the city, where he was, both of my siblings were murdered. And the response I received was a bit off-putting. They actually laughed and said, well, they've been dead. How? And this was maybe 10 years or so after their homicides. And the response I got was, well, they've been dead this long. What's the big deal now? And I had to remind them that, of course, there's no statute of limitation on homicide. But I think part of the problem that we have is that there has to be an honest broker in the community that the community individuals can go to and say, hey, this has occurred. How do we get something done? And then that honest broker can be a liaison, perhaps, with law enforcement. But there's certainly a dearth of trust between the community and the police. There's a dearth of trust between the community and the state's attorney's office, or really anyone that is emblematic of authority. And I think the best way for us to solve that problem is to identify who is the individual we as the community can go to help sort of lead these conversations and get justice for those who need it most.
Ms. Brown?
All right. I have a question, and it's maybe for the state attorney's office. If I'm a witness and I witnessed a crime and the person is arrested for the crime and then they tend to be out within 24 hours, do you think that has something to do with community response as well? Because if I witness a crime, let's say hypothetically, the convenience store got robbed. I witnessed it. The guy goes the first appearance and he's back on the streets within 16 to 18 hours. How does, as a witness, you may feel like the system failed you in a sense? Do we think that it's some part into people not understanding how the system works? Is there, is there any logic in between some of those things? Like, I've seen where people committed some crimes and they're out like within 24 to 48 hours. Is there something I tend to believe that may be a reason that some people don't participate in the process of being a witness.
And that is a good point. And sometimes it is true, but I think what people have to understand is that that's not the end. So just because someone is entitled to and receives a bond or some type of pretrial release condition, that's not the end of the story. Because if we're able to follow through with the prosecution and it's successful, just because they're out enjoying some form of liberty for their pretrial release conditions, that does not mean that they won't ultimately be sentenced to, whatever it is the punishment that they deserve for the crime. So hopefully, if more people ask that type of question, like that doesn't mean that they're going to get. And I hear it all the time from victims of domestic violence because they feel, well, the system has failed me because this person is now out on release, and I have to explain to them, it's not over until the fat lady sits. Like the case is not over. I still need you to stay, committed to the prosecution, because ultimately, if you want to see justice served, we have to follow through, and that might end up being him, end up with him on probation or going to jail or receiving some type of prison sentence. But we have to follow through throughout the prosecution. Don't get weary in the well-doing. And I think that's what the residents have to understand. Just because they're back in the community, they are being monitored on some type of pretrial release condition, whatever that is. So if they're doing wrong or committing other crimes, call it in. Let SOR, their supervised release officer, know. Let the prosecutor know, so that their bond could potentially be revoked. They are released on some form of condition, even if it's on their own recognizance. They're still out as a condition of pretrial release. So they should not be committing more crimes. They should not be, doing anything to violate their conditions. And if they are, their bond can be revoked and they can be put back in jail. If they aren't doing anything, there is going to come a day of reckoning, and that will be whatever, we ultimately resolve it in a plea offer or with a trial, but that's when the sentence will be put in place. So, just because they're out on release, that does not mean that that's the end of the story, and that it's just a waste of time, and the citizen or the resident should not have, given a statement or told what they observed. So hopefully that answers your question.
And let me just add on to that, just one more thing is that I don't want you to think that as prosecutors and even as law enforcement officers, the chief and his officers and detectives, when those people are arrested and when we start our process to prosecute the case, there are crimes that we can't. The law that provides, believe it or not, more protection for the defendant than anybody, and so we can't hold people. It's illegal for us to hold people no bond on certain crimes. People are entitled to they come in the system with an entitlement bond, depending upon a host, a myriad of other factors. But you start from I think that's something that the community just needs to know. That's why I want to add this point that it's not that we want them back out there. They are when you see them back out there, that's because they are entitled to a bond. If they can post that bond, and let's say the judge imposes a bond, and let's say PBSO house arrest, along with the bond. If they have the money to post the bond and they have the money to be on PBSO house arrest, then there's nothing else that we can do other than ask the witnesses to continue to cooperate through the prosecution, and we can convict that person and then get a lengthy sentence.
Mr. Reed, you want to jump in?
Sure. Really quickly, to address something that Mr. Dowling said about the liaison between the community and the law enforcement and prosecution, this is it. This is it. There doesn't have to be an additional person or a group as your go-between. Your elected officials, your Doug Lawson, your other city council members. Those are the people who you have placed in positions of authority in the city of Riviera Beach, to whom you go to. when you want to gain more information and you want to express your concerns about the criminal justice system and the juvenile justice system, to create spaces just like this for the community to come together with, you know, the actors in the system. And so, you know, starting with this and moving forward, this is the venue, this is the forum, and it needs to be more, and it needs to be bigger. I've been watching the, you know, the Facebook count, and we haven't hit more than 37 people on this Facebook, you know, Facebook login, right? And there are 13 to 15 of us on the call, which means that half of that number might be us. So there needs to be more publication. There needs to be, you know, a wider net that's cast to get more people involved in the conversation. And going along to one of the things that Adrian mentioned, you know, educating our community about the system. The more people know about how the system works and what happens inside the system and why somebody gets released, the fact that the law provides that people are entitled to a bond on almost every single arrest and almost every single thing that a person can be charged with, the law provides that they are to be given a bond. When a juvenile is arrested, the law requires that the juvenile court seek to release that person as long as it is publicly safe for the person to be released. And so a big part of, you know, the angst and the frustration that we see as a community, and that I know that I felt coming my way when I talk to people in the community, is that the community doesn't understand the system and understand why the system works in a particular way. So just like the, you know, the county has, the Criminal Justice Commission does its, you know, Criminal Justice Academy, putting more people into that academy, creating a Criminal Justice Academy for Riviera Beach, where we are pulling together prosecution and police and people in the community to walk through how the system works, so that when you are a witness or when you are a victim and you see somebody get arrested for an aggravated battery, for hitting somebody with a gun or pulling out a gun and threatening someone, and you see that same person back in the community in 2 weeks, you'll understand that the system may not have failed you, but the system is working to get toward a just goal, but these are part of the processes. So I think education and communication is a big part of that, and that's something that we should look to going forward.
And really quickly, I wanted to move the subject to accountability, but I don't think we have enough time. But City Manager Evans or Mr. Chief Osgood, if you all want to talk about some of the internal policies and procedures that we're reviewing or looking to implement to ensure that, you know, our officers are being held accountable for their actions.
I'll start with some brief remarks. And in light of the horrific events that we all witnessed concerning George Floyd, the city of Riviera Beach, as it relates to our response associated with COVID, established multiple committees that each particular council person spearheads. And Councilperson Miller Anderson is spearheading the public safety element. And what is being discussed at that committee is looking at ways to ensure that there is accountability, that there is policy review and involvement from the community, that there's more transparency in law enforcement. And one of the things that will be discussed as part of the budget process is how to look at some citizen involvement and engagement to ensure that individuals that wear the badge in the city of Riviera Beach understand that it is a privilege to police our communities. And what we want is good officers that understand that taking someone to jail and locking someone up, that's not how you move your community into prosperity. We have to be there to respond to calls, but we need to make sure that our officers are the standard and emulate the behavior that we want to see modeled in our community. So there is more involvement with the community that you will see. We have now implemented our bicycle patrols. They're out in the community, they're riding bikes, we're getting engaged, we're building those relationships, because none of these problems that we've talked about get resolved if there's not a genuine communication with the officer and the community. If they believe that you're coming in, you're policing, and then you're driving off to Fort Lauderdale to go home, you don't have the same sweat equity and the same commitment to the community. We want our officers to not just look like us. We want them to live in the same communities. We want them to care and have compassion. One of the most successful officers that I've ever had in my municipal career was when I was in the city of Haines City, and this officer didn't even wear his firearm where it was visible, because he had that type of relationship with the community that he can dissolve a situation with 100 people just by talking and having that conversation. So Councilperson Miller Anderson has been working with Chief Osgood and Chief Kurt, and Chief Osgood can speak in more specificities as to what the committee is discussing and what are things that should be coming to the forefront for the city of Riviera Beach.
Thank you, sir, for that segue. So first of all, let me say, going with police accountability. Police accountability is a necessary tool, and it's always been at the top of my forefront on how I manage in law enforcement. We're looking into putting together a citizen review board. Councilwoman Miller Anderson is at the front of this program. A citizen review board where citizens, when we have our police complaints, now keep in mind, it is not an internal affairs. I know people believe they're going to come in and sweep through all the files. That's not the way it works. But we're going to be transparent with our investigations, as we have always been. But now we're getting the citizens on a review board to take a look at what we investigated, and they're going to be able to comb through it and say, okay, you're honest with it. If they see something that we didn't do properly, to go back, and we can say, okay, let's take another look at it. We're doing this to be transparent. Now, I have no doubt that our internal affairs unit, and because it's looked at by me, is doing the right thing. But how do I convince the public that we investigated ourselves and take my word on it? I can't. It's hard for any police agency to really make people believe that. When we see the question of reform came up earlier, or imagine, and that's one of the part of that reform that you talk about. So I'm telling you, I'm being transparent. Now, I want to apologize on behalf of any police officer or detective who laughed about or didn't take anybody's homicide serious. That angers the hell out of me. And you have to take every crime serious. The families out there, they deserve to have a serious police officer on their job and looking into them. So, Brother Dowling, I'm sorry that someone said that to you, and I'm gonna hope that it was probably taken the wrong way. I don't believe any cop would take a homicide of a family member not serious, but if it was said, I'm not doubting you. I'm gonna apologize on behalf of that police officer. I don't know if it was this city or another city. I think you said it was off of Tamara, so that wouldn't be my city here. But nevertheless, it's part of our community. And so I'm going to apologize for that. So that's accountability also. If I had a cop say something so negligent, you better believe I would look into that. And that is not going to be swept under the rug. I don't want any police officer to be that negligent, that irresponsible under my watch. And I'm going to tell you, I don't believe that they would. I think our police officers do a phenomenal job. I really do. I'm going to say this. I mean, it's hard for me to convince you guys this. You may see one thing, but they do a phenomenal job. We got great men and women in this city who are working for this city. And other thing that you probably don't know, a lot of our police officers live in this city, are from this city, or they came from a city that mirrors this city nearby. And so that means they have a lot of love for this city. And I'm proud to be a part of the men and women who really do love this city.
Can I say that there's one big issue I think it's been missing from an outsider? There's a level of oppression that I see in Riviera Beach. And what I feel as a mother is that ultimately all these kids are driven from school straight to jail, because those same kids that I talk about that stole the bike, they are amazing kids. I've spoken to them. Very smart, very intelligent children. And so to me, I think I've seen the youth program, and that's pretty amazing. You should have that mobile in the communities. And it's not just about the stolen bike, because if they would have come to my door and asked me for it, I would have given it to them. The bike belonged to my 20-year-old daughter. It's the point that they don't feel empowered. These kids, when you talk to them, they feel that their only option is to deal drugs and smoke weed, because at the end of the day, That's what people have laid out for them. And I'm going to tell you that coming from New York, my daughter went to Suncoast. And when I tell you, it hurt my heart to the point that I almost went to cry when I found out kids in Riviera Beach can't touch that school. But that's the best school. And all those kids, when my daughter went to that school, were saying that they would never go out into Riviera Beach. Not good enough. Your community is not good enough to go into that school, even though it belongs there. So you have these children in Riviera Beach who are bussed out, not by choice, 5:30 in the morning and risking their life, crossing Congress, to go to other communities where they don't want them. Because at that time, I lived in Jupiter. And Jupiter Independence Middle School, they said they were going to get rid of every Black kid in that school, and they sure did. My kids saw that because they also went to Independence. So by the last year in Independence, those Black kids went there. They were like, you could count on your hand how many Black kids were left. So this is what they're experiencing. And as an outsider, this is what I'm seeing. So how could you really expect your kids to want more if this is a culture that they're seeing, what they're exposed to, that they're not good enough? And I'm going to tell you, when it comes to Black Lives Matter, my daughter, who is amazing, instead of, because my son, I realize that it's so delicate. I don't want him to be scared of the police because he has no right to be. But instead of her making her, because he's so exposed to the news, what she did was she took him to the library and got so many books. And this is something that they do in Jupiter and Palm Beach Gardens. They expose children to read, and they have the mobile book cart or whatever, a truck that comes around. She brought him books to expand his mind on what Black culture is like, about how you could be just about anything, So this is like something I think it's missing. At the end of the day, it's like I'm great. I'm good when it talks about how all the crime prevention, but at the same time, that shouldn't be the only thing that's laid out there for them. So I hear a lot of this. I'm happy about that, but at the end of the day, these kids need other options, and it needs to be thrown in their face as much as the drugs and as the guns are.
I just want to make a comment real quick. Chief Osgood, you have 2 or 3 officers that one lives in Stuart, Florida, and 2 of them live in Port St. Lucie. 2 of them live in Port St. Lucie. So I just want to correct you when you say they either live in Riviera Beach or they live someplace nearby. Well, Stuart and Port St. Lucie are not close, not even resemble what's going on here in Riviera Beach. So let's get that clear, number one. Number two, I'd like to get the phone number of Mr. Ehrenberg, if he could give me that, so I could call and talk to him directly about some issues that I have. And that, so I don't want to burden the panel with a bunch of things. But for the most part, I really have enjoyed this exchange of information. I just think that we need to do more about getting more of our publicity about what the programs are out to individuals. I think public service announcements with local media. I'm tired of hearing about this guy 102.3. What you doing in the courthouse? Why doesn't that sponsor of that particular piece? Why don't we talk to him about what can we do about getting our programs for children and youth on your, on your pub as PSAs on your station at 102.3. Why don't we try to do that and talk to him about how to do better about getting what the programs that we have for youth and for young adults, so therefore they can take advantage of it. Okay, or do a PSA doing Maury Povich or Steve or whatever the TV programs are that the Housewives of Atlanta and this, that, and the other. You're missing the point by not getting it the PSAs involved in those situations. But that's all I wanted to say. I've enjoyed this very much. I think it'll lead to other things that other people can tie into. But I would like to have Mr. Ehrenberg's phone number. So, because I don't want to go through a whole bunch of gatekeepers. So if you would do that for me, sir, I would appreciate it.
We'll make sure you get that number, Mr. Clark. And Chief, did you want to just talk about the incentive program that you have for our officers who live in our community?
Mr. Jackson, we did promise our panelists that we would be off at a certain time. So I didn't want to keep going into
Chief wanted to answer that question that Mr. Clark had.
You let Chief start talking, he ain't gonna stop. You understand that this is Chief Osgood here, that this will not stop talking. So Chief, go ahead and give us 90 seconds. Thank you, brother.
I'll make it quick and thank you, Councilman. Listen, first of all, a lot of our officers live in the city or nearby the city or they're from the city. Not all of them live in the city. I'm going to be clear about that. We are trying to put together a residential officer program to get them to move to the city. So that's something we're working on. I'll make it quick.
Chief,
Oh,
you
thank you,
still
Chief.
got 60 seconds, Chief. Don't waste your time. Chief. You still got 60 seconds.
All right. So I think I can speak for everyone that's here on this panel and that's watching at home to say that, you know, we appreciate the good conversation and the positive dialogue amongst the individuals that's joining us on this call. And, you know, before we close, I would just like to ask Mr. Lawson, Mr. Evans, staff, and the state attorney's office any takeaways that they have from this conversation, and what is your hope that we look like in 4 years? And we start with Mr. Lawson, Councilman.
I'll close out, Mr. Jackson. You can go ahead and either start with Mr. Evans or state attorney.
Mr. Evans?
Certainly, thank you for the opportunity to be on the call. We've got a lot of work to do, but I understand that everyone here is committed, the community's focused, and this is our time. There's no better moment than the present. And so let's not be on a call like this next year talking about the same things. Let's deliver on what we've discussed, and let's get back on a call a year from now and celebrate and have measurable accomplishments that we have been able to do to move the needle to make our community that community of choice. So I'm really excited about what's being discussed, and let's look at it holistically. There's no silver bullet for this particular issue. It's going to take all of us working together and encourage, and like the young ladies from the state attorney's office said, that it's going to require us working with the community, establishing that true, genuine relationship for us to move the needle forward. So anything that my office can do or our staff can do, we're here to work together because we don't have the market captured on intelligence. We want a community that works with us. The real authority in government is derived by the community's submission or understanding to be governed. And so if we don't listen to the community and we don't work with the community, we can't fix anything. And so we have to really rally behind our community and get public policy in place that changes the trajectory of our community.
Chief Osgood, any one or two takeaways you'd like to tell us about?
Yes, thank you. First of all, these types of forums are really good. I can't wait to get back live and see everybody face to face and see 200, 300 people in the room. And that time is coming. Also, I believe we're going to make grounds. I think this time next year, we are going to see huge improvements, a difference in the city. Now, to say huge improvement doesn't mean that there hasn't been improvement before I got here. There's a lot of uptakes and things that I see in the community that I wish people would sit back and look at the grass that's already green here versus looking at things that's wrong. There's so many things in this community, in this city, that is doing right and going well, and it's overshadowed by the small negativity. And now, I'm not gonna say small, we do have crime, but every city USA have crime. But we're concerned about the crime in this community, I get it, and we're gonna step it out. We have juvenile problems. Every community in USA have juvenile problems, but our community is no different from a lot of communities out there. So what I would like to do is make sure the programs we talk about, we make them work, we make them successful. And the look of our police department, as far as what you think you're gonna see, I would like to see in a few months, not a year from now, people come back and say, I see a difference in what you're doing in the community. Because we're going nonstop, and I believe in the men and women we have in this department. I really do. They're doing a phenomenal job.
Anyone from the state attorney's office?
Well, I have to agree with both the chief and Mr. Evans, City Manager Evans, because you know I've met Chief Osgood on a few occasions, and I can tell you, um, he has come to Riviera Beach like a hurricane. And so I do believe that we will see some improvement a year from now or this time next year. We'll be sitting around this table, or hopefully by this time next year we'll be be able to gather. Um, but he is aggressively policing, which is what is needed, and these things take time. I mean, it didn't get like this overnight, and it's not going to be, you know, unfortunately fixed overnight. So all we can do is do what we're doing now, as Cheo said a little while ago, and continue to have these forums and continue to be partners. And we're all striving towards the same goal. And I think we just, we got to get the residents, the community, to truly believe in the signs that I see in a lot of yards out there. See something, say something, and I think that'll help to move the needle forward.
All right, and one or two community members. Anybody? Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. And thanks to Commissioner Lawson as well as yourself for being the moderator, Mr. Jackson. But I just want to echo those same sentiments from Chief Osgood. I think collectively with the substation and the recent house home ownership and to the different various programs through Youth Bill, uh, you know, also to our Park Manor Association, which is led by our chair, Mrs. Gaines. And all of these things we can, will come to fruition simultaneously, but it ultimately starts with us. We have to do better, like you say something, do something. And I would like to take away with some action items so we can come back to the next call. What can we do on our, individual part, on our streets, our blocks within the city? So let's start to formulate some action items as to measurable items as we move forward so we can actually see some progress. Also, I wanted to ask, there was a program that was very successful, which was ICY, Intercity Youth, which was by Joyce Smith and Mrs. Elaine and Terry Ann Nelson. That was a very effective summer program. So I'm not sure if that can be implemented in conjunction with Mrs. Grimsley Youth Bill, but that was a very effective program. It captured etiquette all the way from music to health, wellness, continuing education. So in certain programs like that, we don't have to recreate the wheel. But with that being said, I thank you for this opportunity to be a part of this, and thank you to all of the participants.
Thank you. And
Hear from Mr. Clark? Well, actually, Mr. Clark, you wanted to say something else? Because I haven't heard enough from you tonight, sir.
I usually don't say anything because my wife does everything, which is okay. She usually says everything. But the takeaway for me tonight is there's a foundation that's been put down. I appreciate that. But we all have to now take ownership of that foundation to move forward. And if we're not, and as individuals or as a group, we all must take a piece of that foundation and say, I'm going to do this as far as what I know I can do within my community, within my area. And then we need to sow that seed with everyone else of the community, saying, what can I do to help you in your community and what you can help me do in my section of town? Not rely on the police department all the time or our city manager all the time or on the state's attorney's office or anyone else of an official capacity, but what we can do as citizens, interlocking ourselves together. That is what is important. That's the takeaway. That's the takeaway.
And thank you, Mr. Clark. I think we all can agree that the onus is not on us individually to get this get this topic moving, it's going to take us collectively to actually see some true change happen in our community. And without further ado, Mr. Lawson.
Mr. Jackson, thank you. I just want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Our main goal was to bridge the gap with our community, law enforcement, and to protect our youth and community as a whole. Positive interaction, partnership, and problem solving is what our mission is. Through effective policing and community relations, our citizens can learn about their roles in crime prevention, what to expect from our police, and in the same way, what police can do to better understand what the people need to serve and protect. I believe the continuation of these monthly meetings will allow for these discussions to go on with the city and is essential to actually capturing the goal of what we all want as a community. Setting policy and programs is one solution, but we have to look holistically at this problem. We agree on seeing change that we need to bring to our city, and we want to normalize certain things. We can't normalize mental health. We can't normalize the trauma that our communities experience. We can't normalize the issue that our residents have experienced. But what we can normalize is that we have to work together. I am damn proud of my police force. And one thing that I'm very proud of, if Mr. Evans has done nothing else, but he's brought in an amazing police chief, because Chief Osgood has shown me that he's serious about committing to this community. And he's only been here a few months. So one of the sentiments that were actually set is that we have to take some time. I believe Attorney Ellis did state, this is not going to happen overnight. So this is going to be the foundation that Mr. Clark said. We are setting the foundation for every single one of you residents. We're going to move forward as a community, and we have to do this on a continuous basis. Attorney Reed stated that we only had about 30 or 40 followers on Facebook, but I looked at my YouTube channel, we had another 30 people watching. So at least those 60 that can get out to the community and get the word out are going to start motivating and activating. And we're going to go ahead and take the initiative to market this and get it out to the community and tell them, listen, we need you guys. You are the people that we need. So we have to continue to work together as a community. Fight together as a community. Essentially, like I said before, we are the ones we're waiting for. And one of the most powerful things from the late, great fraternity brother, John Lewis, is he stated, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? I want to thank Mr. Jackson for being the amazing addition to our city, the city of Riviera Beach, because you, sir, are exactly what we need for this community. Mr. Jackson, the reason I asked you to moderate tonight is because you are the leader that Mr. Evans spoke about earlier. You are the individual that we have to capture and captivate and cultivate here in this community. So I'm amazingly proud of what you've done over this last year and a half of me serving. And I thank you and commend you for what you've done tonight and what you continue to do for this community. And thank you for not leaving us, because we are proud of you and we want to continue to pour into individuals like you who are homegrown, who left and went to the amazing college of BCU to get educated, to get their degree, and to come back home and to serve this community. Because if we don't continue to captivate those individuals, we're going to lose this amazing gem that we have. We're coming up on 100 years, guys, and we are going to lay the foundation. Mr. Evans, thank you. Because we fought for you to come back. A lot of people said, oh, Mr. Lawson doesn't want Mr. Evans back. I'm about policy. I'm about program. I'm about implementing a process. And Mr. Evans showed me that he is the person for the city. So thank you, Mr. Evans. Thank you to our residents that joined in tonight. Everyone, I'm very proud of the city. I'm damn proud of the city. Mr. Dowling, thank you for joining us. Our state attorneys, I'm humbled that we could actually take the time and take up all of your evening. Thank you so much, guys, every single one of you that joined in tonight, because we're going to continue these conversations. And all of our residents that joined in, thank you so much, guys.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.